Imagine this moment. You stand within Renaissance Rome's beating heart during the year 1502. Throughout the Vatican chambers, the atmosphere hangs heavy, carrying notes of sharp wine and that unmistakable copper taste that accompanies authority. A wedding ceremony unfolds, a union steeped in political consequence. The bride is Lucrezia Borgia, 22-year-old daughter of the notorious Pope Alexander VI. While silk tapestries shimmer and banquet tables strain beneath lavish feasts, everyone present understands this marriage transcends romance. Before this celebration concludes, it will devolve into a bizarre spectacle, transforming her marriage bed into public theatre. Her physical form becomes evidence, her privacy a chip in political bargaining, observed by witnesses. This recounts how one woman's most private moment became weaponized, and how she ultimately learned to weaponize the degradation imposed upon her. To comprehend that evening's grotesque demands, one must first grasp the brutal, treacherous landscape of Renaissance Italy. This wasn't an age of honor, but rather a serpent's nest of shifting loyalties, where city-states including Venice, Milan, and Naples engaged in relentless, deadly competition for supremacy. At this web's epicenter sat the papacy, controlled by a family whose name had become interchangeable with hunger, corruption, and infamy. Lucrezia's father, Pope Alexander VI, alongside her ruthless brother Cesare Borgia, excelled at this deadly game. They deployed Lucrezia as their chess piece, wedding her to established partnerships and discarding her husbands once their usefulness expired. She was seasoned in this brutal marketplace. Her initial marriage to Giovanni Sforza ended in disgrace, built upon humiliation, and likely fabricated claims of his impotence, a public statement crafted to destroy him and free her for superior prospects. Her second husband, Alfonso of Aragon, a man she genuinely cherished, was viciously murdered, then strangled in what many believed was an assassination orchestrated by her own brother. By 1502, Lucrezia wasn't some innocent bride. She was a twice-discarded wife, her reputation forever tainted by her family's political scheming. Her new husband was Alfonso d'Este, heir to the influential and historic duchy of Ferrara. The Este family was established, proud, and deeply mistrustful of the Borgias' nouveau riche status and scandalous reputation. They required certainty. They'd witnessed how Lucrezia's previous husbands had been cast aside. They wouldn't permit their heir to endure likewise. Therefore, they issued a demand that was grotesque, yet within their world entirely rational. The marriage must be consummated, and its consummation must be witnessed. There could exist no uncertainty, no whispers of impotence or deception that might later annul the union. The alliance needed sealing officially, with authorized notaries present to authenticate the deed. Thus, following hours of festivities, after dancers had tired and poets had exhausted their compositions, the couple was escorted not to private quarters, but to a staged chamber. The windows were positioned sufficiently for observers, Este's ambassadors and clerical officials, curtains partially drawn, yet eyes alert, documenting every detail like bloodline notaries. Under flickering light, Lucrezia, who'd been a political bargaining tool throughout her existence, was diminished to her function, collateral. She needed proving she wasn't defective, and her new husband was capable. What transpired that night was remembered not as intimacy, but as ritual. And not merely once. To eliminate any skepticism, the act was performed again. Then incredibly, a third time. News of the proceedings spread throughout Italy like wildfire. Ferrara possessed its guarantee, and the Borgia daughter had fulfilled her obligation. Was it grotesque? Undeniably. Was it theatre? Certainly. But within this performance, Lucrezia was already absorbing the lesson that would define her remaining years. Humiliation could be transformed into nourishment, and vulnerability could be forged into strength. The Lucrezia Borgia, who arrived in Ferrara, wasn't the trembling victim her new family might have anticipated. She'd endured humiliation and persevered. The spectacle designed to demonstrate her utility also, ironically, empowered her. She now carried with her irrefutable proof of her fertility and the legitimacy of a union she would employ as both shield and weapon in the viper's pit of Ferrara's court. She was no longer merely the Pope's daughter, shadowed by scandal. She was the Duchess, whose body had publicly sealed the decade's most significant alliance, and she wouldn't let them forget it. Rather than shrinking beneath whispers and scrutiny, Lucrezia embraced her position. She became a living embodiment of grace and sophistication. She revitalized the court with her intelligence, her charm, and her refinement. She began hosting salons, gatherings where scholars debated Plato and poets recited verses, constructing an environment where she controlled the narrative. Visitors arrived expecting to encounter a tarnished woman, only to be captivated not by rumors of her past, but by the brilliance of her intellect. Gradually, perceptions shifted. Perhaps she wasn't simply the scandalous Borgia, but also represented Este refinement. She weaponized culture, commissioning art and funding convents, meticulously reconstructing her standing. In a realm where her body had been treated as commodity, she transformed her domain into a new theater, where she served as director, not merely performer. When her husband Alfonso departed for war, it was Lucrezia who governed, issuing decrees and ensuring survival. The Good Duchess, they eventually called her, a title earned through years of leadership and dedication. Scholars still debate whether she resented the role forced upon her or whether she relished the opportunity to master it. Was she simply surviving, or was she orchestrating her ascension from that very first evening? The mystery persists because her letters remain carefully composed, her voice perpetually measured. She never permits us entry, but the outcome is undeniable. The young woman who was forced into political spectacle learned her lessons thoroughly. She claimed what was intended to degrade her and transformed it into a weapon, reshaping herself from pawn into power, from humiliated wife to accomplished ruler. The marriage bed that was supposed to define her end instead became the foundation of her reign.